Watching what?
Layman's turn.
Amos' turn.
Layman's turn.
Oh, Layman's turn.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Make sure you be watching it. All right.
Hey guys, welcome to Layman's Terms Podcast, the place where we talk about really big topics using the smallest words possible. I'm Danny the bartender.
And I'm Tommy the trash man.
And together we're just two guys trying to explain the ever-changing world around us the only way that we know how. And we're back, and there's a lot of things going on. I don't know if Tommy agrees. I feel like there is just a long list of things we could talk about. Again, some of them have passed, but I mean, cancel culture's at its highest. The supply chain's falling down. Censorship's back in the game. We both just recently listened to a Rogan episode, which was pretty interesting. I forget the guy's name. Tom, what's the guy's name?
Alex Berenson.
Alex Berenson.
Yes, he's currently has a book out, or well, it's coming out. Pandemia: How Coronavirus Hysteria Took Over Our Government, Rights, and Lives. Which, hey, that sounds familiar.
I was like, exactly what they did.
I think we've talked about that a little bit.
But dude, even before we get into that, though, do you agree that there's I was literally sitting here. This was literally normally we sit here and we go, what can we talk about? What can we talk about? And I mean, just cancel culture alone, there's 27 things you could talk about. And then, look at Southwest Airlines, Vax passports. These things are getting out of control, dude.
I mean, not only just that, just the little things, you know what I mean? I've mentioned this before, going to the Wawa in the morning and it's not stocked. I ran to Chipotle tonight, and by 8 o'clock, they're only taking online orders. There's, hiring signs everywhere. Look, which again, we've mentioned before, but I was just at my buddy's house, and I was just like, I don't know how we go back to where these positions are full.
Well, something I thought about I really wasn't thinking about talking about it on this, but you just bring it up. First off, going on with you said unemployment stuff. I went out to get wood today from the restoration place that I normally go to. They told me they're down from 30 employees to 9. All of these places that there was this vicious cycle I used to go to about these 3 certain places that were like the Restore, the Second Chance, and the Loading Dock, and they're all like Habitat for Humanity type places where people drop off donations, they take in donations, and they also do some stuff themselves from demo work. And it's such a weird thing because the place was empty. They didn't have any of the normal stuff they normally have. And the lady said, I guess what I put together from what she was telling me was, it's not so much there isn't stuff out there. They're just, if you only have 9 employees, you can't be taking 7 truckloads a day and having people sort through it. So they just change the way they work. Well, but then I'm starting to realize, is there really a hiring problem? Because I'm pretty sure that you could hire some of these people. So I feel like there's a lot of convenience that used to be for us. Like you said, why are you only taking online orders now at Wawa? And how much of that is because they can't hire somebody, and how much of that is because they don't really care anymore to hire somebody. And we as consumers went from having the convenience, like Home Depot used to be open till 11. Why? Because, hey, it was convenient. Now they close at 9 or 10 or whatever. And are they going to give us that convenience back? Do they want to hire somebody when every consumer is starting to say to themselves, got to get to Wawa by 9 o'clock, because if not, it's online ordering only.
Well, and here's the thing. I turned back around, walked back to my car, and I was like, all right. First world problems. These are just things that, as Americans, we take for granted. You know what I mean? We're used to things being open late, being able to go anywhere and just get whatever you want at any time. So I don't necessarily have an issue if we go back to things closing a little bit early, maybe people working a little bit less. But the concern is that they can't get people to work. And my thing was, I was like, how do we change that? You know, because I don't know what the status is with people and unemployment as far as like, you know, with the pandemic, if that's still ongoing or whatnot. But there was just a jobs report that I just saw the other day. And I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of people that just quit their jobs, you know, in August alone. And I'm like, how do we get back to, you know, if you're a 15-year-old kid and all you do is turn on the news or all you do is hear about people that are like, oh man, all you make is $10 an hour. Oh, fuck that. Like, I'm not going to, what are you going to work that? Like, you know, we got to raise minimum wage to 15, 16, $17 an hour. How do you fill these low level jobs with this mentality that like this entitlement mentality? Like, where do we go from here? Because that's been the narrative for going on a couple of years now. And then the pandemic really kind of like, you know.
Well, personally, what I feel, this is what I'm saying, where I'm getting confused by the whole thing. And I can speak from my personal job. I can speak from what I see. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about the supply chain, but it's too much to talk about, but I can use it right now as an example. It's like when you're saying, you know, like I believe that this idea has been used by the current administration to cover up things. In other words, people don't want to work because they don't want to work for the certain amount of hour. I mean, they don't want to work for $10 an hour or whatever.
Right.
But so wait, so you mean to tell me right now with unemployment off, like they don't want to work for $10 an hour, but they can't even get unemployment anymore, you know? So you mean to tell me people are choosing no income over the income that was there in 2019 before the pandemic? And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that's what they want us to believe on one angle. But then, like, I know from my own job, like all of a sudden it became, and it's starting to really irritate me. All of a sudden it became it became a thing where you could say to customers, hey, there's only 4 of us working today. Well, my boss isn't like out there really pushing, trying to get people. I mean, yeah, of course, I'm sure she's got a help wanted thing on the Craigslist and whatever else. However, she also doesn't want to stay open past 9 o'clock all of a sudden. So it's like, as much as they're complaining that there's no worker, like, I think that this kind of thing turned into, and this is the part that scares me, it shows me the possibility of how they may start to treat us. Whereas in that free market, in that whatever, the attitude of people would be, well, like when you said, I can get used to stores staying open, closing earlier. Well, why did stores come about originally and stay open later? Because it was like, hey, that'll be our thing. We're 7-Eleven. We're open fucking 24 hours a day. You know what I mean? And now all of a sudden it's like, because of, you know, whatever reason, maybe the market itself is smaller, maybe competition is tighter. These people are getting to kind of utilize the pandemic as an excuse for why they actually, like, you know, I'm sure the general manager of Home Depot isn't too, upset that he now goes home at 9 o'clock instead of 11. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So what I was saying to somebody the other day is, I don't know what is going to have to happen for them to give us our convenience back. Like the convenient, like a lot of the stores that stayed open late or whatever, it was like, that was their selling game. That was the convenience to you. And what is it going to take? Like, you know, you're going home at 9 o'clock, but you hire a couple more people and now you're going home at 11 o'clock. Is that something that the company wants to do? And yet when people are walking in and saying, hey man, why is the line so long? Or why is there only one? Or why is none of these shelves stocked or whatever? It's like they get to just say, hey man, pandemic, can't get like that narrative is accepted by everybody. And, you know, not to go on too long, but the supply chain's a perfect example. There's a million ships sitting out in the middle at the ports. And, you know, there's truckers that are willing to, like, as much as they're saying there's short supply, whatever, they're not bringing the ships in. The trucks aren't taking them out. How much of this is really like, you know, I mean, if ships are sitting there with goods and truckers are saying that they can't, like, they're not being allowed to get to them or whatever, and ships aren't allowed to come in and drop stuff off, I think it's a mixture of like people accepting the narrative that like, hey, that's just, you know, that's just how it is. But at the same time, I like that. I don't know. I'm not saying that there's some nefarious agenda behind it, but I do know that never before in a restaurant have I been able to so easily dismiss complaints by just saying things like, hey man, that's all we only got 3 people. Why are you guys closing at 7:00? Because we only got 1 shift. And I as much as I am starting to hate saying that to people, because I'm like, it's busy, why we close it, I'm also noticing that the people above me aren't upset about that. They don't feel, their attitude is like, well, they can come before 7. And the fact that maybe some people do, like people start to rush in, like, you know, and they're still making money from that. I don't know. It's just fucking, it's really confusing me right now. And like I said, I don't think it's nefarious, but
yeah,
I think
it's weird. Like, because, you know, I have heard that with the ships out in California, and Ron DeSantis actually just commented on, and he was like, listen, California is incompetent. And if you want, sail down to Florida and we'll handle it.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder, obviously there's a political game there. You know what I mean? So that makes me wonder like exactly what's going on. So yeah, man, you know, there's a lot.
But with that being said, I'm telling you right now, man, stop. Like, it's funny because of course now it's, what scares me more is it's being said in the mainstream media as of yesterday, but I've been saying for 3 months, like, get your fucking Christmas shopping done now. If you need cat food, dog food, you know, I don't know what it means when people say stock up on canned goods, but if there's anything, not even because it ain't going to, it definitely won't be there. You won't be able to get it, but just to save yourself 9 trips to the right store that still has it. If there's anything that you can buy in bulk that could save you the trouble of going out there and dealing with people during a panic buy, go get it now while it's still available.
Yeah, because the White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, she was just asking questions about, you know, will children or people have their packages for Christmas? And she was like, well, you know, we are not the United States Postal Service. We're not UPS, so we can't guarantee those things, but we're going to utilize, you know, everything at our disposal to make sure that that happens. And I'm just like, all right, whatever. Like, yeah. Why is this even happening? Like,
why?
Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, prior to the virus, like everything was functioning normally. So
well, let's even forget prior to the virus. And I'm not, and this is not even, this has nothing to do with the comparing the 2 administrations, because I don't even understand what's going on. But what I will say is this wasn't a problem for a year during the heart of the pandemic. Then it's like we were almost over it. And what also is weird is no one talked about it. And then all of a sudden, to like last week, it's a super problem. But yet, most of the places I was getting my information, I was even thinking like, am I even like, I mean, for 3 months, people are like, I'm telling you, man, there's no fucking cars. These ships are sitting out in the ocean. So in other words, if it really is a problem, why did we only discuss it when it became a crisis? You know what I mean? Right. Like, and so what I think is interesting is why, like, you know, when people say things like, well, a lot of the crisis is because of things in California, like at the port, they're still running on like high coronavirus things. Well, how come this problem wasn't there when when you still were on lockdown? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, the stores were. When I went out to the store during lockdown 4 or 5 months in after the panic buying was on, people were getting $1,000 a week, and places were stocked to the brim. You know what I mean? And every store I went to was packed. You would think it was panic buy time again every time I went to the places that were open. So it's really confusing to me. And like I said, I think it's like the weird part is I can't figure out why they would do it without going to a place that just means that people want to self-destruct this country. So I don't know. And I don't see how that would be. I don't understand that. Like, why would someone want to destroy Christmas if that's all that we're going to be, if are we going into a panic buy where all of a sudden we ain't going to be able to buy food, or are we going to be running out of toilet paper again? Because I don't know why somebody would create a toilet paper shortage.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if we start talking about that, it goes into a dark place. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
but exactly, that's what I mean.
because we've talked about it before. It's like, why would people want to see this country fail, right? Why, especially people that live here? Why would they contribute, to certain campaigns and want to see democracy fail? And I think part of the reason is that you'll still have elites that will still hold power, that still have, tremendous amount of cash in the bank. And there are people that believe, that the world's that we're overpopulated. And we have politicians talking about we got to limit the amount of beef that we take in. And I was just like talking about, I was like, I shared something the other day, and I'm like, dude, bugs, do not be surprised if in the next few years we're being sold on bugs as food. It's takes place in other countries. It's safer for the environment, which is, I think, part of their shtick. Just like Impossible meat or whatever that stuff is, you know what I mean? Like, so don't be. It's high in protein, and you could just mass produce that with really no issues. So I wouldn't be surprised if that comes down the pike. Maybe not next year or anything, but within the next several years, I think that's going to be the next kind of big push for people.
Well,
it's almost like the in the Matrix, when they give Neo that stuff in the bowl, like, and he's like, what is this? And they're like, oh, it's just synthetic proteins and all this crap to keep your body running. And I think essentially that's what's going to happen.
Well, dude, but
here's
here's
like you're going to have your elites that got their houses up on the hills, and they can get their fillets, they'll get their crab legs, and the majority of us will be eating this synthetic bullshit that's made out of bugs and who knows what else.
Well, here's the thing where I don't like I definitely didn't explain, because I didn't explain it the way I wanted to in the beginning, in the sense of like, because there's so much going on. But I think from what you just said, I'll be able to get it out in a sentence or two. When you said, like, the elites are still going to be around, and I was saying how, like, it's how they're starting to treat the consumer. And then I kind of said, now I can see kind of what people mean, that they kind of want to do to us. I don't understand the concept of the people that believe the conspiracy of, they just want us to somehow not be working and living off the government, but yet like being consumers as well. Like, where would Amazon make money from this or whatever? And what I am starting to see a little bit of, by the way, Wawa and Home Depot can tell you what to do now without giving you the convenience. It's no longer like, hi, welcome to Wawa, where we're here for you all night long. It's now, hi, welcome to Wawa. If you want a fucking meatball sandwich, you better get it by 9:00.
Well, just to clarify, for Wawa's sake, I said Chipotle. I said Chipotle. Chipotle and Wawa is a different,
Well, I'm talking corp. Although Wawa, yeah, whatever. But I guess what I'm saying is when you're saying that whole elitist thing, well, if you look at through what happened, Amazon basically grew immensely. And at the same time during the pandemic, all these small businesses, which would be competitors, like who's more likely to start to be not a competitor, but if Amazon decided that they weren't going to deliver past a certain time, or another corporate chain decided they weren't going to stay open past a certain time, well, it would be the small businesses that would step in and be like, hey, well, I'm the corner store. If I want to get an up on Amazon or these other places, I could be available to you and provide the convenience. That's where I'll win. That's where I'll get a little piece of the market by adding that convenience. Well, if we really lost like 1/3, 2/3 of all like small businesses, and then they pass legislation and stuff that makes it even hard, like if taxes go up and everything goes up, now Amazon's rich enough that they don't care. What I'm starting to learn, like when they're saying Facebook, I'm thinking, why would Facebook want to be regulated? Well, what they're saying is because Facebook now has money to be regulated. So if they have to pay billions of dollars just to keep up with the regulations, that's fine, because no competitor will ever be able to do it. So maybe it works the same way in the consumer world. And so what happens is, I feel that the world could become, when you were saying they're going to try and start pushing for us to eat bugs, what if you start going online and the only place you can fucking order your food from now is like an Amazon or whatever, and you're going there and it's cost them too much to produce beef, so they don't want to carry it anymore. And when you walk in and you say, hey, I'm looking for beef, and they're like, yeah, it's too expensive for us to carry it, but we got bug patties right there for you. Like,
Yeah.
maybe it won't be a choice. Maybe it'll be maybe if Amazon gets total control of our industry, it will be less of like, oh, the convenience of Amazon, and become more like they're the only place you can go, and this is what they got. So you don't have a choice whether you want to eat a piece of beef. They have a little small section where it costs fucking $3 million. And then over here, there's bug patties. Enjoy. Or
Right.
even impossible meat. Like I agree with you on impossible meat, where it ain't good for you. It's just an alternative that's cheaper to make than beef, probably, but a little bit more scientific and complicated, has shit in it that ain't really no good for you. But the bottom line is, what if you start going to the store and the impossible meat is really the only choice you can make financially? And
Right.
and that's what they're offering you. And maybe I just harped on it too long, but that's what's starting to scare me is, if we really do maybe that's what people foresee is, as a consumer, you no longer even have a choice. And that's kind of how the elites sit up there and they eat fucking whatever they want. And then they continue to make money off of you because you have to buy it from somewhere. And there's only the elite companies left. Motherfuckers.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're treading some thin water here, or thin ice. To the point we may get canceled. And talking about that, there was one more a celebrity that you could add to the list of uncancelable. Did I say that? Uncancelable. Yeah, I always
Yeah.
saw. I think it must be my headphones. Like when I talk into this, I'm like, did I say that right? Because it sounds kind of different in my. But whatever. Dave Chappelle had his new special out, and there's a lot of backlash going on right now with my man Dave Chappelle. A lot of people sticking up for him. A lot of people are like, can't touch the man. And to be completely honest with you, I'm not surprised whatsoever that people are up in arms about it. But in this, if you actually watch this special and you listen to the story that he tells, if you're not paying attention, if you're one track minded and all you're hearing is him talk about trans people, of course you're going to get offended, and you're going to want to cancel your Netflix and all that other bullshit. But the reality is there's a meaning to the story. And I don't really want to give too much away, but I thought it was a decent special. There are some things that in some people, like with Chappelle, that I find there's some contradictions in some of the things that he talks about. He talks about, people get mad at me about, talking about trans people, blah, 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 blah. But no, it ain't like that. But we can't have, like, for me as a white guy, I can't have real conversations about race, right? Without people misunderstanding me. And Dave Chappelle is one of those people that kind of pushes that narrative in some ways. So I'm like, bro, in many ways, you're aiding to this cancel culture. Like, you're kind of pushing it. And then all of a sudden it kind of bites you and you're like, wait. And then you kind of go back to the thing that you're saying, oh, well, racism. But this is how it all, it's, it's like
you either gotta like just be, it's kind of like free speech, right? I know what you're saying. I'm not cutting you off. I'm just saying like in free speech, you either believe in all of it or none of it. And it's the same way with that like race topic. Like just you don't believe in some revenge for it, you either believe that when it happens to you, even if it happens to you all the time and it's wrong, when it happens to someone else, you can't sit back and say, good for you, you deserve it. You know what I mean? It has to be that, racism was wrong. It happened in the past. That doesn't mean that now, if it starts happening to the people that did, the generations gone of people that, forward, whatever. If my ancestors did something wrong, but I ain't doing anything wrong, but now, somebody comes and delivers me the same thing that happened 100 years ago to someone else, it's still not right. I don't know.
All of the identity politics, it doesn't matter what team you're fighting for, whether it's trans or gay rights or religious, some sort of religion, whether it's Catholic or Muslim, whatever, white, black, they all are going to come around full circle and bite you in the ass. Doesn't matter what team you support. If you support it and push that narrative, then eventually it's gonna turn on you. You know what I'm saying? Like Dave Chappelle, like he likes to talk about racism a lot, and push that narrative a lot instead of kind of being a little more positive about it. A little, like, he could kind of change his message to a certain way. So if you choose to go that route, then you can't be mad when you're like, man, I just don't understand the trans community and the LGBTQ. I don't understand why they come for me. I don't get it.
Yeah.
That's because you're contributing to it.
Well, the thing that's great about you saying that about Chappelle, I don't know if I've ever mentioned it on here, but I love Chappelle, right? I love Chappelle. But Chappelle has said two things. There's been two incidents where Chappelle has like pushed exactly what you're saying to the point where it really like, it kind of stuck a dagger in me. But at the same time, I believe in comedy is comedy and whatever. And so, he's still funny, even though like I didn't, whatever. But there was one of his specials where he was like, if you don't believe in kneeling to the flag and then you're against Colin Kaepernick, then don't fucking follow. Don't listen to me. And I'm kind of like, well, where do I move forward? Because I love Dave Chappelle. But then the last time was when he opened on SNL. And I don't know if you've seen that opening, but it was really kind of fucked up because he literally starts talking about like Trump supporters and how, and he goes, and he goes, yeah, and it's horrible what they're doing to you, and they're coming at you, and everybody's, calling you this and calling you that. And then his punchline was, how's it feel? How's it feel to have a target on your back? Like it was kind of like his punchline was, there you go. That's what you get. You're getting that because that's what we get. So I don't care. And I'm like, kind of like, man. And then going with what you said later, and it's something that I said about Rogan, where maybe I exaggerated, maybe during the time I was caught up in it more. But that's the thing I'm starting to hate is like, don't fucking react only when you've been affected by it, but dismiss it until it touches you, and then move forward because nobody fucks with you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, you know, and another thing, there's so much that's going on right now. But do you not feel like if you believe in that communist structure of where it's like Alex Jones is the first to go, and then all the conservatives are the last to get attacked, but then eventually, what do they call it? They'll eat themselves. Well, now we're in that category where Republicans ain't even like a thing. They don't even matter right now in politics. So now who's under attack? The two Democrats who still vote a little moderate. Who's under attack? Dave Chappelle, the guy that was like their biggest leader, Nicki Minaj, Joe Rogan. So we're getting into that. They're starting to eat themselves. We're getting, you know what I mean? We're getting in. And the weird part is, for anybody who thinks that I'm crazy because I think something ain't right, why is it like we're following a rule book of how to destroy a society? You know, and maybe it's not on purpose. Maybe actually that's just how a society destroys itself without people, you know, interfering. But I say to myself, maybe I'm crazy. And it's not like as if I'm looking for these things. I'm actually sitting back and going, you know, I hope I'm wrong. And then you wake up one day and the biggest thing on Twitter is cancel Dave Chappelle. And right. I literally said, I think like about 3 weeks ago to a month ago, I said, the best thing that can happen to us now is that they come for Dave Chappelle. And I said that out of nowhere. There was no reason for them to ever come for him. So imagine you're me. And I'm like, well, they went there. Like they went to the place that I thought, man, could you imagine if they go there? And they went there. It's just insane.
They did, but I don't really think there's going to be any like real.
But this is what I'm trying. This is why I believe that we will win this battle, though, because that's why. But again, that's why I said the best thing they could ever do. It's like they didn't win with Rogan. They're not winning with Dave Chappelle, but that will stop Dave Chappelle from doing that shit that you said. Like, in other words, Dave Chappelle would have been more inclined to just kind of toe the line, or there's no put it this way. If you're Dave Chappelle and your narrative is like race and there's racism going on in the world now, and you're starting to see it go in the direction that actually not benefits you, because I don't think he's a fucking mean guy or something. But what I mean is, there's no reason, like if you're a Democrat and people are all saying the election was stolen, and you start to think like possibly could have been, there's no reason for you to start talking about it if you're going to, like, if it benefits you, or if you're a Democrat and you're happy with what's going on. I mean, why fucking stir the pot? So I guess what I'm saying is, once you start remember what I said before on here, you don't need to win 50% of the people over. You just need to win 10% over. So the people that, when they tried to cancel Nicki, when they tried to do shit to Rogan, when they're trying to do shit to Chappelle, that's why I love to see that, because it won't work. And all it will do is make people people that would have told you were crazy when you were saying, you know, they're trying to cancel Alex Jones, and they're like, well, good. Now they might sit with you when you say, you know, this cancel culture shit's ridiculous. And somebody might be like, yeah, it is. You know what I mean? You're right. So that's what I want to see. And that's why I think they won't win the battle, because once they move into their own territory, they're not going to take it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, what the greatest thing that could possibly happen, you know, when social justice warriors and the media and all come for guys like Joe Rogan or Nicki Minaj, Dave Chappelle, over the questioning of that narrative. It's almost kind of like when you had Malcolm X, who was very outspoken, and he had a completely different approach to uh, the social movements, of social justice movements of the 60s at the time. And eventually, like, he was very anti a lot of his, you saw Martin Luther King Jr. was very unifying. Malcolm X wasn't that person. He was very much like, no, we need to kind of separate, and we go our own way. We do our own thing. And then when he went to Mecca, and he kind of changed his message when he came back, and he was like, I saw white people, black people, yellow, brown, all different people worshiping, for the common good, like their common God, whatever. And there was a sense of unity, and his message was still the same, but that his language towards other people and other people that didn't look like him kind of shifted a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, he knew that you could come together under a common cause. And, it also brings me to Kyrie Irving, which is an NBA superstar. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, no, that's one of the things I would have brought up. Yeah.
And he's currently standing up against the vaccine mandates with the NBA.
Him.
And here's a guy, we probably would disagree on topics when it comes to, George Floyd and oppression in America. And we've talked about it before. I mean, our perspective on certain things, it's kind of limited. Like, I recognize that, you know what I mean? And then there's certainly holes in many of my arguments. You know what I mean? There's perspectives of other people that I just can't live. Like, I don't know what it's like to live in America as a black man. You know what I mean? So, like, and vice versa. Like, a black man can say all he wants about me and how I am privileged and all these things, but he or she doesn't know what it's like to walk in our shoes. You know what I mean? Now you have a guy like Kyrie Irving, who we probably would have disagreed on many things, and maybe it would have gotten heated. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, fuck that guy, he's a racist, or fuck that guy, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Now you have a common enemy. You know what I mean? And this is where you kind of hope that we can kind of maybe turn the corner in some ways. Like, it's going to be tough, but I give that guy all the credit in the world, because he's still, we had a couple people that were holding out in the NBA, and they took it. They took the shot. And he's one of them that's like standing by his morals. And, I don't know. I did see something, besides the fact that I guess he's against it for whatever reason. I did see something along the lines of him saying, like, there's hundreds of thousands of people, regular people, that are losing their jobs over this. Like, and I'm a millionaire. Like, that's the least I can do. Like, that's my fight. And I, if that's the case, I mean, I really don't know. I give that guy a lot of credit, man, because it's easy for someone to get up here and say and fight for certain causes with nothing to really lose.
Well, with more to gain.
Right. You know what I mean? It actually, you see it in Hollywood, you see it in sports, jumping on these bandwagons that put you in the spotlight. It's, and to be completely honest with you, I think he's, like, for instance, with Colin Kaepernick, like, yeah, his decision had some blowback in the NFL, and it cost him, it potentially could have costed him a job. I'm sure that there were definitely owners that didn't want to touch him because of that stance, but he gained so much more in the long run, because, I mean, his play was declining as it was, and the Nike deals, the TV shows and just
I think people even did
beyond
like a
recognition.
GoFund. I think people even like gave him money.
Yeah. Now, and you probably won't see that same reaction for Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, well, that's when you started talking about it. I didn't know you were going to go there, but that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, who's the real Colin Kaepernick? Like, it's weird to say because we're comparing Colin Kaepernick, but it's like, take a look at what's going on. You have the guy who's getting forced out because he's being forced to make a choice that he believes no one has a right to tell him to do. And then you have a guy whose play is declining and he decides to become this iconic figure over an issue that debatably, is overblown in the media. And look at, Irving's situation hasn't played out fully, but who loses? Who's losing?
Right.
And then when you said when you were talking like that, I see the same thing what you're saying. Like, it's so funny to me because I was thinking about bringing this up to you earlier, where we have made jokes on here where we're like, aliens, like we've said it when we weren't even talking about like needing it.
Right.
We were saying like at this, we were making jokes in the very early on about how divided this country was, that we would need a common enemy like aliens.
Whoa. According to Demi Lovato, that's a derogatory term now.
I didn't know that, but that's insane.
She came out and was like, we need to call them ETs, like extraterrestrials.
Oh my God.
But aliens are a derogatory term.
But so who would have thought that our aliens would be a vax passport? You know what I mean? Or a vax mandate.
Right.
And that's the one, like, I agree with you 100% where this is why, as long as see, I didn't know that. And that's why I get that, again, going back to where I was like, man, please attack Dave Chappelle. Or when I was hoping that Rogan would turn the corner on and just start, Rogan never did anything wrong. I'm not saying he was doing something wrong, but it was like, I want you to attack this issue. And he had to get a little attack to really go forward with it. But I didn't know how, like, I knew how the right was going to react, or, whatever you call, because I don't know what the hell. Listen, I'm not a conservative. I'm not a Republican. I consider myself, I guess, a populist, or whatever, like whatever that chunk of people that they like. I believe we want the same things as as Irving in a sense, but however, what we're being fed on how to get there is different, and they're causing us to look like we disagree when in reality we want the same thing, and we're both willing to go there together to get it. And it's like, let's just say that Nicki Minaj never did what she did, and Rogan and Chappelle, and even though like Chappelle hasn't done anything, Chappelle just kind of, it was more about gender than anything. But it's like, if these people were to just keep going along with things, then we'd get to a scary place. But now that I see what's going on, I don't believe that you can, like, the same way me and your mind is unchangeable now that this stuff is wrong. There are people that didn't mind it when it wasn't them, that now they're seeing their athletes, their stars. I don't know if you saw, like, Shaq came out and said some crazy stuff too about being like, he said it without saying it. Did you see that?
I don't know exactly. I know he said something about like celebrities. We need to like get off our pedestals.
Well, I've seen other things that he's done too. So I with just that one statement, it was kind of like people were reaching, but I did think he was going there. But basically, Shaq's has said now multiple times things that where you kind of, I mean, in the climate we're in, what he's talking about. But he's said things like, you got to, like, don't listen to celebrities. What do they know? And there was one thing he just said recently about, like, it was something about the free market or whatever, but it was clear that, like, he was saying, I'm not for all this crap. But either way, it's like, now I feel there's enough people mad at this. And this is kind of why I was pointing out, like, Australia and stuff in the past and everything is because, see, I don't believe we're going to go. I've never been afraid like, oh my God, we're going to be taken over or we're going to be whatever. But what I hate is knowing it's like watching your friend just not listen to you and keep going down the track that he's going down, say something easy to relate to, like a girlfriend, and you're like, she's bad news. And then you start to realize I can't even really tell him anymore because it's just getting weird. And then he comes and he doesn't want to complain to you about what's going on in his life because you're right again about the whatever. But the whole thing is, your friend's going to be fine. Eventually he's going to come running back to you because he's going to need you when she does what you inevitably see happening. However, it just sucks to know that I have to sit here and watch this go on to the point where it's enough. It becomes too much. Yeah. And that's kind of what I foresee is like, it's like 3 months ago, we're saying these fucking vax passports are wrong. And people have all like, you lost a job, like in 4 months, they're going to regret that decision. You know what I mean? But it's just kind of like in the interim, what can you do? What can you do? And so that will be the same for me. Like, I'm sure in a year, restaurants aren't going to be requiring vax passports and stuff, but they're about to do whatever the hell's going on with they're doing more on the vax stuff here. So I'm pretty sure in like a month or two, they're going to require it at my job.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to, I don't even think it's going to work, but it's like, well, what happens the day that you get told you have to do it, So yes. Whatever, but I think that if anything, this stuff is going to unite us more than divide us. But at what point will the economy be fucked? Will the housing market be fucked? Will the supply chain be fucked? Will everything be fucked? And that's the only way to do it.
Well, it may unite races more, but it'll separate classes more, in my opinion. And
what classes? And I'm seriously asking
because again, if let's say, like I said, I lost my part-time job, you know what I mean? So if it cost me my job or whatever in my livelihood, and then my, Asian neighbor or black neighbor or whatever, then all of a sudden we have common ground. We're different ethnicities. We have common ground. We don't have anything in common with the people that did take the shot and are working. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. It'll separate classes even more.
Well, that was something I was even thinking today too, where I'm like, the thing that people, the thing that makes this so difficult is if you really like, let's just throw away, like, let's not even say that someone who wants the shot is like the crazy liberal, right? I mean, clearly there's people that have taken the shots that are just like, look, I don't like, they're not wrong to do so. They're just kind of like, well, I trust the government. Like, or not even I trust the government. Like, I mean, it's just like, why would they? There's nothing for you to buy into on a vaccine. If the FDA said it's good and whatever else, so they take the vaccine. Think about how easy anybody on the other side could look crazy, because if you took the vaccine and you're going to work like normal and you turn around and you go, hey, where's Bill and Jamie? They're like, oh, they won't take the vaccine, so they quit. You really might say in your head, like, what is wrong with these people? Like, Jesus, you're going to lose your job over a stupid vaccine.
Right.
And again, something has to affect them. But this is also the course I think we're going, though. Like, I really think, and I've said this before on here, where I believe that the Democrats and their policies, I believe that that something happened when Trump became president. And like Trump, hate Trump, it's not about Trump. What I'm just saying is, let's just say you accept the fact that like Trump was a shitty president. However, the original reason why people said that they voted Trump in was because they had it with the GOP and the Democrats. They were done with them. and they just wanted to fucking throw a cannonball into the system. Well, so at that point, it's like the Democrats are basically this movement of people and waking up would be too strong for the Democrats to really exist like with their equity and all this stuff that they're trying to push. I really believe that everything that they're doing is because they know that like they're done. I'm not, when I say they're done, I mean the same way. Like if you look at the Republican Party, it's done. Whatever it was before, it'll never be again. They can't go back to, it doesn't mean that they're going to win everything. It just means like the GOP as we knew it is dead. And now the Democrats are going to eventually have to make some decision like that. Like, in other words, the Democrats, like if we move forward and we end up and Republicans win in 2022 and 2024 or whatever, the Democrats are going to have their own civil war within themselves, like we've had over the past 4 years. So these Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden era, all that stuff, it's dead. And so I feel that everything they're doing doesn't make any sense to anybody except for the fact that they need to pass certain legislation and all to make sure that they can still exist. And so they're when you see like what, that's why like when I wonder what could there be a nefarious thing with the supply chain or whatever else, or these vax mandates, do they make any sense? Or it's like they poll and like 75% of all voters don't really feel that people should be forced to take a vaccine, yet they still move forward with it. And I think it's because they're just doing anything. It's like you cornered a rat and they're just doing whatever it takes to stay in existence because they don't see a future for themselves outside of it.
Well, yes. And the current administration, despite whether or not they feel like moving forward, they're going to win in future elections, as far as them handling the pandemic, I think they have to keep throwing shit at the wall and just hoping it sticks. Because again, we've had somebody at the helm in Fauci, and there's reports coming out all the time now, lying to Congress. He was involved with the gain of function things. And it's like he's a made man. Like you can't touch this guy. He's a made man. He's a made guy. You know what I mean? Tony Fauci. Because it's right in front of your face. Back in, what was it? August, September or something, when he was like, if we get everybody vaccinated, we'll be able to get rid of this pandemic. And that's just not the case.
Yeah.
You go back and I know we mentioned it earlier in the podcast, the episode with Joe Rogan and Alex Berenson. He is a reporter and he's writing this book about, the pandemic. He points out all of these things that where they have been inaccurate and where they've contradicted themselves, where, there's some issues with the vaccine and this shit that we're even talking about right now. I don't even know that this is going to make it on fucking YouTube because they're getting really strict with what they're allowing up and now. But there were some interesting things that I learned from it, which I didn't know, that once you're vaccinated, there's a 2-week window where your body's more susceptible to an infection. I wasn't aware of that. But like the studies that have been coming out of Britain and Israel, that have been saying that natural immunity is stronger. It's providing people that have gotten over COVID with stronger immunity moving forward. They're now saying, and then this guy was pulling up charts and numbers that 4 to 6 months after you're getting your shot, the 94% effective rate that they sold us on from the very beginning is now, after 6 months, maybe like 30%, which is why the idea that it was like, oh, these breakthrough cases, it's extremely rare if you're vaccinated to be getting sick. No, we're seeing it more. In fact, this guy was saying that 70%, in 70%, I don't remember, it was in England, Britain, somewhere. 70% of the people that were dying were vaccinated.
That was that's the whole country.
And there's a reason why, is because that the vaccinations aren't working like they initially thought. They're still effective, but that's why we went from take the shot, you're going to end the pandemic, to now we're going to need some boosters. In Israel, that's what's happening. They're 85 to 90% of the country is vaccinated, and now they got to get booster shots. And another issue going back, and another episode going back to Brett Weinstein, that unfortunately, this is one of those stories where, you hear somebody like you listen to this podcast, you hear something that this guy says, and I'm like, and I went through some of our old podcasts, and I'm like, did I say that? Did I mention that? Because I remember mentioning this after listening to Brett Weinstein to a couple people, that I was like, if you just break this down from because he was like, let me go back. Brett was saying this idea that it's the unvaccinated that are causing this spread. He's like, it is one of the most genius marketing ploys that they could ever unleash. And he was like, it's just, there's no proof to it, that it doesn't make sense. So I was sitting there thinking, and I was like, if you have somebody that's robbing a neighborhood nightly, just breaking into houses because everybody's leaving their door unlocked, it's easy. You don't have to do anything. You just walk right in the front door. Now, you can keep doing that and keep doing it until somebody finally locks their door. When somebody locks the door, what are you going to do? You're going to climb in the window, maybe. You're going to go in the back door. You have to change your approach. Just like humans have evolved throughout history, where we have less hair, our jaws have gotten are smaller, our teeth have gotten weaker.
Penises have gotten bigger.
Yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, we evolve, and the environment causes us to change. So with the virus, now, why would it have to change in an unvaccinated person? It exists. It moves into the host, an unvaccinated person. It just goes in like the guy just walks in the front door, robs the house. There's no deal. There's no issue. With a vaccinated person, it's forced to change. It's forced to mutate. I was having this conversation with, like I said, a few different people. Now it's one of those things where you're like, oh, wait, I said that. And I'm like, really? Yeah, okay, sure you did. So this guy on this podcast today was pretty much saying the same thing.
No, I've actually read that in an article where they're not telling you that. Like, there's so many articles out there you can read where you're getting that, but everything you were just saying, I've thought that myself, where I've read things where they talk about the virus mutating. Then I've read other things where they talk about something about the virus can lay dormant long enough in an unvaccinated person. Like, a breakthrough case is kind of like the virus lays dormant and kind of fucking finds a way to mutate and become a breakthrough case. So everything you're saying is true in my mind, because from what I've read, if it attacked me, my immune system would handle it, and it either fails or succeeds. If it succeeds, it kills the virus. If it fails, the virus stays as it originally was and kills me.
Right.
If it goes into a vaccinated person, like you said, it's a locked door with an open window. So it'll find a different way. And then if that virus then spreads on, but even without getting so complicated on it, that is, I believe, and after watching the Rogan, but I've also read some of that data myself, what's crazy is, and if you remember that guy said a few times when Rogan pushed back on him on certain things, he said, well, that's true too. But what he didn't really say, it's the same way that they manipulate data, like how they can confuse you with like police killing data and everything. You said something in the beginning of the vaccine rant. You said, what happens that you didn't know after you get the first shot? Your immune system goes down. You're more susceptible to the virus for 2 weeks, right?
Right.
But even when that guy was showing his data, he was going by what they call fully vaccinated. So if you were to die after getting your first shot, they don't consider that fully vaccinated. However, if you get your first shot, like what are the numbers of people who got their first shot and died within the 2 weeks? If that number is high, how can you say that that doesn't have anything to do with the vaccine itself? So you see what I mean? How they can play with data, like, oh, well, if like they don't count, if you get your first shot of the vaccine, if you remember in that Rogan thing, that dude was showing you columns and he said, don't read from there, read from where it says 2 weeks after second shot.
Mm.
Well, there's data that's higher that reads in the next column over to the left that says, like one shot administered, whatever. And so if you get one shot, you're considered unvaccinated. So if 2,000 people die, from that they consider unvaccinated, well, what if 1,000 of them got their first shot? Well, could they maybe have died from their immune system being more susceptible to disease because that 2 week period where that does that to their immune system? It's like they just keep playing with data, and the same way that they push this unvaccinated, it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated, and you can't get that out of people's heads no matter what what you say about the data, because they just can't get out of their heads. To me, that's the same thing about how when you walk up to somebody on the street and say, how many black people do you think were killed by police? And they say thousands, and it's not true. Like,
Right.
like in a year. And it's like they push that whatever data they use or whatever they do to create that narrative, you can't get that out of people's heads. And I think it's the same thing with the vaccine, where they've played games with data to the point where it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And now that's so strong in people that if you actually ask them that question, like, well, why? Like you keep hearing everybody say, if you're protected, so why do you need me to get protected from the same protection that doesn't seem to be protecting you? How would that then protect you? And they can't answer the question, because at the end of the day, they're just like, it's doing worse things to the unvaccinated. That's why I'm getting it,
Right.
And you'll never get past it, no matter what data you present these people. I mean, seriously, like, dude, at what point? Like, we don't have a free and fair press. This is disgusting. Like, really, I hope at some point, somehow, like, that's the only thing that I can see good coming out of all this is if enough people wake up that CNN ceases to exist. It doesn't mean Fox News is the news. It just means that, just like you said about the locked door, like maybe the media needs to come to a locked door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And maybe they need to not find a way to sneak in through the window, but maybe go and get a set of keys and do the right thing and be, live in the house as a guest and try not to rob people.
And that to me is the mental manipulation that's gone on throughout this whole ordeal. The goalpost continuously shifts. The narrative consistently shifts for some reason and for some people. And I think ultimately it just comes down to fear and personal experience. Maybe they lost somebody because of COVID or whatever. But, we talked about it on the last show. I have a show coming up that I'm directing. And there are several theaters, in the surrounding area, and they all have different policies. One theater, cast, crew, audience, everybody has to be vaccinated. Another theater, cast and crew needs to be vaccinated. The audience does not, but they are required to wear masks. and now the theater that I'm working with, is that there really is no mandates. We're just, per the CDC guidelines, they strongly recommend that you get vaccinated, as well as, if you are unvaccinated, we strongly suggest that you wear a mask, which that's pretty much the stance that every store that you walk into at this point has. We strongly suggest you wear a mask. I don't see that it's required or mandatory pretty much in too many stores anymore around me anyway. I don't know. At least.
Oh, you don't have a mask mandate? We still have a mask mandate, bro. I can't go anywhere without a fucking mask.
No, dude, I haven't worn a mask really in months. Other than when I worked at the retirement home, I go into stores and nothing.
Oh, I can't go. I can't. I just kind of defy it. So in certain situations,
but
I don't
you
care.
do you see other people not wearing them?
Like they can't come in my restaurant without. Like in other words, this is kind of what's going on. Is people don't want to wear them, so they'll come up on the patio without a mask. They may not be from Baltimore or something. And like if people say to me like I'll see them say, hey, I don't have a mask. Like you don't necessarily have to have a mask if you're on my patio, but if you walk into my bar, you have to. And like none of us care anymore. But but so in other words, people follow the rules of like they'll walk in the door with a mask, and then like I'll see them walk to the bathroom like kind of like, oh shit, my mask, and I'll be like, just fucking go to the bathroom. But that's me. Now I went in the Royal Farms and tried that shit the other day, which is like a Wawa, and I walked in and they're like, put your mask on, or whatever. So it's still a law here or whatever, however that works.
I haven't gotten one thing said to me in several months.
Well, and I don't want to harp on this, but I guess my question to you though is it a law though? Like it's mandated here, like all like the mayor said everybody's got to wear a mask. Did they remember I said that it went away for like they stopped it, then they started it a few months ago, and they're not stopping it. Now, are there places where people might not give a fuck? I'm sure. However, if I go to a bar, technically by the mandate from the city, I have to wear a mask right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I haven't been wearing them in a while. And so the theater that I'm working with, that's their stance on it. Now, unfortunately, I have my cast, which I have to say, I think the cast that we have currently assembled is like the fucking Avengers. I mean, I was blown away by everybody. Fantastic cast. And then I received a text from one of the women that is basically my lead. And she has some concerns about my theater's approach. And she's like, I don't know about who's vaccinated or unvaxxed. And, the audience isn't required to wear masks. And I'm in a tough place because I'm like, well, what would make you feel more comfortable if we maybe asked the audience to wear a mask? And she said, yes. The problem is that the board already voted on it. So that's it. They're not going to enforce it. You know what I mean? So like now I have to go back to this lady and tell her, and I'm probably going to lose her. And, she went on about how she has people with autoimmune diseases in her family or whatever. And that she just wants this pandemic to be over and it's going to get worse in the winter. And I don't really know how to explain to somebody like that. Like, listen, because I'm not a doctor. Like, I don't know all the answers. But I don't think that everything that she's hearing and the information that she's getting is necessarily correct based off of her reactions.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is where all of the problems that we're having in society when it comes to race, when it comes to now this, when it comes to, sex and man,
They all stem from lies.
yeah, exactly. And it's like there's a
But
propaganda machine that is just pumping out narratives to
yeah,
people, and they're the media is the real pandemic.
well,
Like
well,
you could say all you want about racism, you could say all you want about COVID. The real pandemic in this country is our media.
100%. And the thing is at every turn of every event, it's the media that we can't get by. Like there are things that I know that under the right light would not, I'm not trying to be proven right, but what I mean is under the right light, somebody would say to me, yeah, that's kind of fucked up. Maybe you got a point there. And it would allow us to engage in a conversation. But this idea that, well, that can't be true because then why wouldn't they tell me is what's stopping us, And when, I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you remember, but even though I was kind of joking, here's the problem that I think that the other weird thing with us is we're always supposed to be, don't you feel like by taking the views that you take, like when you just said this woman came to you and kind of explained to you her situation, and you're feeling for her, you like, in other words,
No, you're exactly right. I feel bad that she's and it's a good point you're about to bring, and I don't mean to cut you off, but here's the thing. The thing that makes me, because I share a lot of stuff on social media and I've lost people, lost followers. I've had some people inbox me and kind of like upset about things. My biggest thing is, listen, I don't believe that what you're being told is 100% accurate. I'm actually looking out for you. Like, I'm not saying that I have all the answers, kind of like what we talk about on this podcast. Like, listen, we don't know. There's a lot of information that we don't have. There's a lot of numbers, statistics that we don't drop on everybody. We're not telling you don't take this or don't do that. It's just the media and everything that you're being told, it's not adding up. So you might be right in some cases. We might be right. I just don't think that the American people are being told the truth in most situations. And that's where, yes, I feel bad that she is living in that much fear.
Well, also then wouldn't you agree? Like I feel like the kind of person I've been my whole life, let's take away all the pandemic and everything. What I've always noticed in my life was anytime I tried a situation where, like, let's just take a little situation like at work, like you work in a situation where you have an open availability, you work whenever. And every time you come to work, somebody's like, oh, well, you have to stay because Linda has a fucking kid and she's got to go home by 7, or, Jim has fucking some other job, so he can only work till 4. And you're getting shit on constantly. The only reason why I'm bringing this up, it'll make sense in the point I'm making later. But whenever I've turned around and like decided, you know what, I'm going to do exactly what they do to me. So I'll come into work and be like, oh, I can't leave. I gotta go home because I gotta watch my niece. Yeah. And everyone there, like rather than give me the same support that they gave everybody else, they look at me like, okay, like I'm not allowed to do what they do. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so with that being said, this is the part that really frustrates me. When I was telling you that day on the phone, find a way to be a victim. And sometimes you have to. It's impossible, really, but you have to do it, right? So in other words, if there's been times in my life where I've had to like accept things that I shouldn't have to accept because of other people say religious freedoms, like I might be at work and it might say, oh, why didn't this person work today? Oh, it's a Jewish holiday, whatever the hell it is. But if I was to turn around and say like, oh, well, I go to church on Sunday, everybody would just laugh like, okay, whatever. Because they somehow know that I would skip church or whatever the hell it is. So with this being said, someone is coming to you and saying, you don't understand though, I have autoimmune deficiency in my family and blah, blah, blah. And the thing is you know that those things don't connect or add up, but you're a caring enough person that you take into consideration their fear, their emotion, the kind of person they are, and you care. Yet I don't think that, and I can't speak for this individual person, but I think on some of these cases, it's like these people have zero concern for you. Like the same person who's worried about their autoimmune disease, whatever, blah, blah, cares nothing about the person who maybe doesn't, like the same way somebody can say to you, autoimmune disease or whatever is in my family. Well, what if you said, I know someone who got the vaccine and died?
Right.
They don't care. They
Right.
don't care. They don't care what happened to you.
Right,
They don't
right.
care if you lose your job. They don't care. And when you act like you care, if you were to turn around and say, just like I was kind of saying about work, if you were to turn around and say, well, I do know somebody, actually, I'm a little nervous because my uncle got it and now he can't move his fucking arm or something. They laugh at you.
Right.
Because it doesn't. But if you were to, God forbid, tell her to connect the dots, how someone in her family had how that means that you have to give a shit about her. Like technically she doesn't have a problem. She doesn't have autoimmune disease or whatever else. They don't care. Right. And so that's where I'm at, where I don't care anymore because they don't care. I think, and we've said it even just in the past, talking about the past Trump years and stuff. It's like all I've ever wanted to do was beg you to listen to me, beg you to see my side, beg you. They don't care. They believe that they are better. They believe, like, the reason why that woman I don't want to speak about this woman, but I'm just saying the reason why I feel in my life that people don't care is because they're already showing me that thing that I'm reading about and being told about and now starting to understand more. I'm the dirty, smelly. Okay. I'm the guy that minded, like, in other words, I have a friend who has when you tell me your problems with getting the vaccine, I've already fucking chalked you up as someone who's lesser than. There's no way that your information could be, you don't, what I read is better than you. Just even think about that. Oh, I watch CNN. So I know, oh, where'd you get that? Fox News? What's the fucking difference? What do you know about CNN and what do you know about Fox other than your people at CNN told you that Fox is crazy? When, like, if McDonald's tells you that fucking Burger King is crazy, do you believe them? Like, what information do you have to put forward that Fox is a crazy network? Oh, well, what you have to put forward is that Fox is telling you that you shouldn't mandate a vaccine, and CNN tells me I have to get it. So Fox is crazy. Why is it then that when I say to you, I listen to that on Fox, which I don't listen to Fox, but if I said that to you, why am I easily dismissed? Because you clearly think that your choices are better than mine, and therefore, if I'm not abiding by what you're abiding to or what decisions you've already made, I'm an idiot because you won't even give me a credit to be involved in the conversation. You know that the vaccine's good and I don't agree. Therefore, since you've already come to your conclusion that it's good, why would you listen to Danny, the dirty, smelly guy? You know? So that's kind of what kind of sucks is that is one thing that I agree with, that I don't agree with, but I believe is that there is there is this elitist attitude in some liberals where they're not elitist, but they feel that they're aligned with the elitists that are the elitist, and right. and we don't fall into that category. And I don't know. There's nothing I can do about it or whatever else, but look, I'm not going to just look at all the people telling you what to do. I wouldn't listen to these people on fucking how to get a loan for a car. So suck my, you know, did I lose it? But,
No,
but it's
man.
crazy.
No, I completely agree. And you know, it's just like I said, the real pandemic is the media, the propaganda machine, and whether it is race in America or COVID in America or gender or whatnot, these networks, they give you a very simplistic way to handle it. It's like you just need to be more acceptance. You have to accept your privilege. You need to take a shot. And in many ways, yes, in many ways, those things can maybe help. But there are also underlying issues that we don't want to talk about because it gets complex or it's offensive. And we have to coddle everybody. Everybody's got to be, you know, you got to walk on eggshells around everybody because, you know, you can't offend people. You can't tell them the truth. You
But
can't tell them what they really want to hear or what they need to hear.
And who needs to walk on eggshells around you? That's what drives me crazy.
And, you know, there's so many issues with this when it comes to the only answer is the jab. And it's just not. It's just not. And we're so entrenched in this culture. I mean, just think about it. I mean, cancer rates over going back to, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 years ago. They're not like they are today. What's the difference? I think it's our food. It's our agriculture. It's the fast food and the sugar. I mean, you know, you got a soda pop at the local store 60 years ago. What was it? 8 ounces. And that was like a snack. And now you go to 7-Eleven, the wherever for a Slurpee, it's fucking 64 ounces for $1. And you're like, this is completely unnecessary. So everything that's feeding the machine, you know, capitalism and the food industries, the craziest thing is the people that are pulling these levers, that the people that were in bed were the cause of the disease currently happening are the same ones that are telling you how to cure it. And they're all gaining money either way. And people just buy into it.
And you know, it still goes with what you're saying, and it's something I just watched Comey Rules or whatever, and it goes with what you're saying though, even though I'm talking about a show or whatever. But basically, when I was like the person I was watching it with, they're not involved like I am, and everything was annoying me because I could see the picture they were painting. Like right in the beginning, Obama sits down with Comey, and he says to Comey, you know, when if you become the head of the FBI, we can't have conversations like this. And like, I'm furious right away from the beginning. And the dude's like, what, I don't see what you're saying. I'm like, they're painting the fucking picture for 4 episodes later when Trump starts talking to him on a regular basis that it's wrong, which I'm sure Obama's done the same thing and so has everybody else. But anyway, when I just looked at the person when I was done and I was like, look, you might not understand where I'm at with it, but to me, this is like watching a documentary on who shot JFK by the people that shot JFK.
Right.
And so what you're saying is that's what's going on in the world right now. It's like Pfizer is paying fucking CNN. Pfizer has people on the board of directors for every one of these media companies, you know, and they toe a line, you know, and even if it doesn't get that complex, it's pretty fucking clear. There's a narrative. Okay. When you have fucking Stephen Colbert coming out dancing vaccine and it doesn't make any sense, dude.
It's the most cringy fucking thing.
And like, Rogan said in that episode something that whether I've said it on here, I've thought in my head and I feel like I have said it. I'm so glad he said it in the way he did, because in my head, half of these things I watch now on TV, I don't see someone who considers themselves a comedian. Like I can't see them sitting in the room pitching that idea and going, that's funny, because I know Stephen Colbert is funny. He had to know, like, to me, that's, and honestly, I think that should show you what's going on, because basically somebody came to a comedian who's funny and said, you're going to dance with needles dancing around you. And I guess the reason why I'm saying that really proves something to me, because basically, yeah, you're a millionaire and you're a big time talk show guy, and you think you're important, but you're really a useful idiot. So today, whether you like it or not, if you want to keep your job and your status, you better fucking dance. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Which is like the most, it's if you think about the term dance monkey dance or whatever that people have said in the past, which is like it just kind of like something you say to somebody when you're saying you're no longer important to me. You listen to me. You've seen it in movies over and over again, where that guy who thinks he's important finds out at a crucial moment, you ain't important, dude. I'm the boss,
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're at in society, Tom. Let me ask you a question. And I don't think either of us have the answer, but I just want to ask it. Where is this going, or how does it end? Does it end with an election? Does it end by policy? Does it end with us in the streets? Does it end with a global takeover? Like, what is the end game?
That's a tough question, because the more power that we hand over to the government, I don't think it matters if they're Democrats or Republicans.
Doesn't matter at all. I agree 100%.
So the only thing that you can kind of hope is that Republicans are typically the ones that speak of freedom. So at least they're sending that message out there. I mean, and someone like DeSantis, for instance, I mean, he's certainly taken his bumps and bruises and plenty of criticism for the way he's gone about things during this whole pandemic. But he's certainly the one that's out there like, listen, leave masks up to parents when they send them to school. We're looking at data, like, that's the best way to approach things. We can't be going by mandates. I was jumping up and down when I saw the Texas banned it. The federal mandates.
Well, I'm happy about that too, because that means that at least I'm making the right decision to go to Texas.
Yeah. And I don't know if maybe this, what would be the most comparable thing, maybe the AIDS pandemic was just, like I said, we talked a little bit before, people were absolutely crazy about, people were fucking freaking out about it. People freaked out about that. That was when we had the strong push with condoms, and pop artists were handing out condoms and wearing them condom earrings and all kinds of shit, like practice safe sex.
You're right, like, dude. I forgot about that.
And that was the major push. That's we kind of like have like shied away from that now, because people kind of look at AIDS like they don't think they're going to get it. You know what I mean? And even if they do, like, I think most people think, oh, well, you can live with it now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the only thing that I can hope for is that I certainly don't think in some ways, yes, an election will possibly help, because I just think that this administration in particular is just, they're a year in, less than a year in, and they're just a nightmare. Yeah,
they're really a nightmare. It's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, which I feel weird saying that, because I know that people felt that way when Trump was elected. Like, I know there was legit regardless of how it went, there was legitimate people that saw Trump and that administration as like how we're viewing this now.
And those, but remember, we're talking about people who act emotionally over false information. I mean, we also know now
Yes,
that
yeah,
Russia,
of course.
that's why I just don't give it any justification
But
because
at the
it's all
time though,
bullshit.
but at the time though, there wasn't the information that's out now to back up. You know,
I agree. I agree because I've thought it myself. But where I strongly disagree, not disagree that I actually agree with you 100% in what you're saying. However, if it like it was false, like in other words, Tommy Caroli just lost his job because of this administration.
Yeah.
Whereas other people during that time it was really just like they created the fear that I'm like, if I was acting, like I said, like I've told myself that at the beginning, like I've even took what you said into consideration, like, yeah, well, this is the fucking way it goes. The people felt this way, but it's like, this guy's actually doing things that are bad, like that are actually like, maybe people thought, like the bottom line is they created the idea that a monster was the president. And he wasn't. We also saw that even if he was a monster, we saw that there's too many forces at play that he can't even be a monster, you know?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference was in kind of like in what you were saying is people's feelings were hurt by mean tweets and by his demeanor. Joe Biden's policies are just crushing between gas prices, between your when you go to the grocery store. I just saw something that the White House was predicting that the average person's heating bill is going to be up 54% this winter.
Yeah. And they asked Psaki about if they could do anything to kind of change it, because what they meant is like maybe get some more things going. And her answer was, we understand that it's going to get expensive for people, but we feel that global warming needs to be dealt with now.
Yeah, it's like it's the same thing with potentially charging you a tax per mile, like that with driving, and it's like all of these policies that this administration is manifesting physically in a way that's hurting your pockets. It's costing people jobs. Whereas the previous administration, it cost you some mental disruption because you were upset about his mean tweets or his perceived racism. But it wasn't really manifesting in a way that this is.
Well, I'll also ask you a little quick question on top of that. Let me ask you this question, because I've thought about this recently. Here's the worst part. We always say like, all right, they hated Trump's demeanor. And then like every time I see that thing of, okay, you still hate the mean tweets or whatever. Is Biden's demeanor any better? Like, are we saying that Biden is way more presidential, but yet his policies suck and Trump wasn't presidential and his policies were good? I mean, I think that Biden, like, even if if you want to add that it's just emotional on top of his policy sucking, every time this guy comes out and fucking speaks or says something, or Psaki says something, I mean, they might as well be saying, like, their whole thing was, look at him, look how he acts at a press conference or whatever. Biden's coming out and being like, fuck you, I ain't even going to talk to you. Then sends Psaki out and she just fucking makes crazy shit up or whatever. So personally, I don't even think it might be different, but I don't think Biden's presidential either. I don't care for his demeanor. And even if it's just one-sided, just like it was before, like I thought Trump was fine and maybe half the country didn't. Well, now I think that Biden's demeanor sucks, but his policies also suck, you know?
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah. But so I guess we're probably going to do there. To be honest with you, there's so much to talk about, but the one little thing I want to say that I'm going to make a crazy prediction. This is a far conspiracy, but it's a prediction. Do you agree that the world we live in now is very new? Like, when I say very new, you like the internet has been around for 20 some years or whatever. Facebook's been around for 10, Twitter's been around for like 10 or whatever. But you also have to remember that Trump was the first president that won because of that because he was able to have social media involved in his campaign. And he's also the first president to ever have a Twitter account before he was elected. So I guess what I'm saying is, yes, these things have been around, but it's only been in the past 4 or 5 years that we've actually handed over our lives to Uber. And like 4 or 5 years ago, cabs were still around and people were like, I take cabs. I don't like that Uber shit or whatever. And now everybody's just aligned with the system. So the way I see it is like, we now live lives the same way we used to talk to people that use calculators too much in math. It's like, we've forgotten how to live our own lives if they take our calculator away, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've also said on here, like dating, like for centuries, a dad would be able to explain to his son or his daughter about, like, you know, they come home from school, they're upset, a boy fucking didn't like them or liked them. That they've been able to handle that same, although it's changed, although things have changed, it's kind of been a simple situation. But then all of a sudden it turns into like dick pics and online dating, shit that people don't understand. So we live in a world that we don't understand. So could we also be simultaneously in a world where we don't like if we were to be at war, would we understand it? In other words, the way that supply chains and infrastructure and resources and everything is operated on, like these little hacks, they hacked the meat supply, they hacked the Keystone Pipeline, they hacked all these little things, which no one's ever come out and told us why. Like we knew that it was happening, and they're like, oh, the pipeline hackers will put everything down. But nobody came out and said, oh, we figured it out or whatever, or, you know, here's how we're going to protect against it. It just happened, and there was no recourse, and there was also no explanation of whatever. I mean, what I do think is we may be living in a world where somebody's planning something against us, and they did those little attacks here and there just to see how we'd react, because maybe they plan to do them all at once again at some point in the future. And that, like I said, I'm not sitting here. That's not how I'm living my life. I'm not walking around, but I'm just saying, back in the day, it was always the same. Like when I brought up dating, it was like in medieval times, you surround the castle, you cut off communication, and you make sure nobody gets in or out. And then go up to like Vietnam time or beginning of Iraq war. If you want to, you surround the enemy, you bomb the bridges and the roads, you take out the airfields. That's how war has always been conducted. Well, if everyone in a society now relies on the calculator, the Wi-Fi, the technological infrastructure, if someone was to decide to take out a country, like in other words, moving forward, we may be only 4 years in to an era that we don't understand how to protect ourselves yet. You know what I mean? Like for 1,000 years, we knew that if they take away your fucking how to communicate, I mean, they were still using carrier pigeons in World War II. So I don't think that we as a society would know how to function. I mean, just think about it. They just took out Facebook for 6 hours. No explanation as to what happened. It was global. So I know it sounds crazy, but what if somebody was testing all these things to see and make sure that A, it was possible, and B, that we didn't have an alternative, and now they plan to do them all at once. So that's my crazy prediction, that there's a possibility that something like that could happen. Could you imagine? I don't think you have to get behind it. I'm just throwing it out there as a crazy thought. However, not like, you know, not like we said, nothing under. I can't understand how the supply chains fucking at a standstill. I can't understand why someone attacked our pipeline and then did nothing. Why they attacked our food supply and then did nothing, and then why they would attack Facebook and there'd be no explanation. So we'll see. That's my crazy prediction.
Yeah. I mean,
like I said, dude, I ain't asking to get behind it. I'm just throwing it out there. So, yeah,
you're going a little Nostradamus for us at the end there.
Yeah,
I dig it.
When it turns out that, I'm completely wrong, I could just go, see, I was just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
But if I'm right, Danny Nostradamus.
Well, that was a little bit all over the place. There was, like you said, there was a lot to talk about, but it was kind of tough to get it all out.
Well, I mean, and again, I feel like we're, as much as there's stuff to talk about, it's still repetitive. Like all this stuff is repetitive and that's what's starting to scare me is I'm starting to be demoralized, I guess, in the sense that it's like, dude, without a media, like CNN should be talking about Irving right now with somebody who supports him strongly and is respected. And then with somebody who has a different, and there should be a big debate. Should this be how it goes? Instead of, you see this kind of stuff and you go, yes, finally somebody's fighting back. And then you just see a propaganda campaign to fucking smear this guy for the next fucking week,
Well, I hope so. I mean, I shared a TikTok video of a guy from England who was talking about the protests in England they were having that were going on for a little while. And he's like, and the mainstream media wasn't covering it. And now England has ditched their COVID passports.
Yeah, I seen the video. You sent it to me. He was like, we won, baby.
Yeah. So
like, keep up hope.
The only thing that you can hope is that there are a lot more people out there that think like us. We may not hear their voices as often as some other narratives, but with people like Kyrie Irving, people like Rogan, hopefully kind of just putting some ideas out there. Hopefully something happens where, we can make some changes, with the Southwest Airlines, hopefully those pilots, there's a lot of nurses and everything that walked out. I God bless them. God bless anybody that's losing, a job and income due to this. I would love to be able to connect with people like that, just to talk to, just to kind of like find out what's going on, what they plan on doing, and just to kind of spread the word. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's like too, like my cousin lost her job of 14 years, and it's one of those jobs where like I feel that it was like she was doing well there, but only because she'd worked there for 14 years. Like, and she gets fired. She's got a kid in the house. So God bless her that she stuck to her guns in a sense, but it's like, what the fuck does she do now? You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, exactly. And that's the scary part.
Yeah. And so, I guess we'll just keep up the positive hope, but,
and there are databases, I know I mentioned to you, I was like, dude, I would like to do a website to kind of network for unvaccinated people and working, but that's already out there. I mean, there are databases that some people are providing for that. So hopefully that grows, and hopefully people stick together and speak out, and some things happen.
Well, I also, as fucked up as this might sound, I actually like the idea of kind of separate, like in other words, it's like when I see somebody on, like, it's just as much as I feel that this mask shit and the vax stuff is meant to divide us. In a weird way, it's like now you're like I've not through any of this process have I ever felt more connected to somebody than when I'm sitting somewhere and they're like, I ain't taking a fucking vaccine. Like, you know, I got guys in the kitchen that like I went back, I'm like, who's taking the vaccine? And they're like, they barely speak English, but they're like, no, Bill Gates, no. But like the thing is now like I go in and I'm like, don't get like, I just can't explain it. It's like there's a kinship with people. Right. And I really, it's like something that makes me feel like, oh, good, a like-minded person. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't like to engage with other things, but it's more because I'm seeing people that I don't feel that I'm completely aligned with. But when they are against the vaccine in the way that I am or whatever, it means that that's someone that's willing to and open to conversation, you know? Doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum they're on, but it's like, here's a person who ain't gonna crucify me, you know, for not going along with what he likes or whatever.
Right.
So, and I wanted to mention this earlier, but did you see the the tweet with the Magic Johnson and Kyrie Irving?
No.
It's the best one. Some celebrity, I forget who was I think he was like a veteran basketball player. If I'm wrong, doesn't matter. He was a blue check mark. And he said, just think about this. They let Magic Johnson play with full-blown AIDS, but they won't let Kyrie Irving play because he didn't take a fucking vaccine.
Right.
And it's crazy, dude.
Right. I mean, you could easily test the dude every night.
Or anything. Yeah.
Right. You can test him that night and then he can get on the court and play. Like, if he doesn't have COVID, he don't have it. He's not spreading it. Like,
and you know, and I think if you really think about then what is the, like, everybody knows that they could do that. Everybody knows that they could do that. And everybody knows that they don't want to let this guy go. So it also shows you what's more important to these people is sending the message that we are with you. You know what I mean? Like, right. Like it seems that it's more important to the NBA and the pressure that the higher ups in the NBA or the coaches are having, where they see more of a benefit to making their sponsors and everybody know we align with the narrative than they are for that dude's own personal freedom or whatever.
Yeah.
When it's an easy answer, just like you said, just make them go in fucking 4 hours before every game and get tested or before practice or whatever. Right. Put him on a crazy regimen. He's got enough money. He can have doctors at his house 24 hours. If it costs him $1 million a year to do it, I'm sure he'll be fine.
Right.
But all right. Well, Tommy, it's good we went a little over.
That's all right.
But I feel like it was a good, well-needed conversation. I wish you good luck with these people you're dealing with in your life. And stay strong. Stay strong. And don't give in to the man. Remember that guy? The man? What do you think? He went away? He's still around. Seems like all the people that used to be against the guy are now standing alongside him.
That guy ain't going nowhere. He's a made man.
He's the man. Yeah.
You can't touch that guy. He ain't going nowhere.
All right, Tommy.
All right, brother.